Today we're going to talk about properties of like numbers. The properties are statements that are true for any number. So, for example, the expression 10 plus 30 and 30 plus 10 both have the same value of 40. So what they've done is they put a name to that, and that's commutative property of addition. All right? And here's how I remember what commutative stands for. Hey, what did I do to those two expressions? What did I do? What's the difference between them? What's the difference between 10 and 30 and 30 and 10? I flipped the order. I've changed them, right? So for commutative property, here's how I know what commutative stands for. Change order. CO. Doesn't that kind of go with CO? Change order? So commutative, anytime I see commutative property, I know I'm changing the order. Now here, 10 and 30, 30 times 10 and 10 times 30 have the same value of 300. This is commutative property of multiplication. Here when we're adding, that's commutative property of addition. Here's commutative property of multiplication. Again, CO, changing the order. That's all I'm doing. Okay? And the reason they name this stuff, I know it's real simple and you already know this, but the reason they name it is because you have to be able to use these properties later. And I'll show you an example of that at the end. Any questions about commutative property? So the definition of commutative properties is just that the order in which numbers are added or multiplied does not change the sum or product. So I can change the order, CO, and it doesn't change my answer. And here's an example of that. 6 plus 9 and 9 plus 6. What is 6 plus 9?
15.
What is 9 plus 6? Is 15 equal to 15? Yeah. All right. Same thing with 4 times 7, 7, 4. What's 4 times 7? 28. What is 7 times 4?
28.
So changing the order doesn't change my answer. That's commutative property. CO. Any questions about that? Here's the definition of associative properties. The order in which numbers are grouped, and that's key right there, is the grouping. When added or multiplied does not change the sum or product. So associative property has to do with the grouping. Here's how I connect those two. What's another word for associative? Like what's the base of associative? Association, right? What's another word for people that you associate with? Like the group of friends you hang out with, right? So association, grouping. So I can change the grouping, but I don't change my answer. And here's the property of the associative property of addition. 3 plus 6 plus 1 plus 3 plus 6 plus 1. I didn't change the order. It's still 3, 6, and 1. 3, 6, and 1. But I've changed the grouping. Here's 3 plus 6. Here's 6 plus 1. Let's see. You always want to test anything they give you. What's 3 plus 6?
9.
What's 9 plus 1?
10.
10. What's 6 plus 1?
7.
What's 3 plus 7?
10.
Does 10 equal 10?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's associative property of addition. I can change the grouping, but I don't change my answer. Here's the associative property of multiplication. 5 times 9 times 2. 5 times 9 times 2. The only thing that's changed is the grouping. Here's 5 times 9. Here's 9 times 2. What's 5 times 9?
45.
45. What's 45 times 2? 9 times 2 is 18. Guess what 18 times 5 is? 90. Okay? So you can change the grouping and it doesn't change your answer. The reason I'm teaching you this, because this is really simple. You should already know this, even if you don't know what it's called. But the reason I'm teaching this is because you're going to use these properties later. Okay? All right, here I want you to write this down. All right, you have these, the last three identity property, there are these identity properties. Additive identity, what that means is when 0 is added to the number, the sum of that is the number. So adding 0 to a number doesn't change it. I know it's pretty self-explanatory, we already knew it. Like, why would you want to add 0? Well, I'll show you examples later down the line where you need to add something to a number, but you don't want to change it. Well, what's the easiest thing to do is add 0. Okay, same thing with this. Multiplicative identity. When you times a number by 1, the answer is still that number. You don't change it. It's the same thing as adding 0. And you'll see where you're timesing something by 1, okay, but you didn't even know it. Right? There'll be examples like that later. Okay, when you have a variable, it's the same thing as timesing that variable by 1. So anytime I times something by 1, I get the same number. Okay, that's multiplicative identity. And the multiplicative property is 0. When any number is multiplied by 0, the product is 0. And later we'll do homework problems where we have to get rid of something. Well, what's the easiest way of getting rid of it? Times it by 0. When you times it by 0, you get 0. So if I want to know what this is, I times it by 0. Does that make sense? Okay, and that's multiplicative property of 0. Alright, write this down. Alright, so now we're going to name the properties. They want you to know them. They want you to be able to identify them. The first one, you have 4 plus A plus 3A. And then you have A plus 3 plus 4. Here's what I do. When I see a problem like this, I know it's not one of the identities, and I know it's not property 0. So it's either going to be commutative or associative. Here's how I do it, and I think it's the easiest way. I rule out commutative first. Okay? Here's how I do that. I look at the order of the numbers, 4A and 3. Do I have 4A and 3 here? No. Okay? So can I rule out commutative property? No, because did the order change? Yes. So guess what? That's going to be commutative property. So COMM. I abbreviate. I don't ever write everything out. Commutative property of addition. So I just write a plus sign. If you want to write AD or ADD, that's fine too. Write it to where you know what I'm talking about, and I know what you're trying to say. So commutative property of addition. That's all I need. D plus 0 equals D. Someone raise your hand and tell me what property that would be. Alan? Additive identity property, right? Okay, because I'm adding a number, but I'm not changing the answer. So A, D, D, and I write ID, additive identity. Or you can write plus symbol and then ID. Either way, it doesn't matter. As long as you know what you're talking about and I can understand it. 8 times 1 equals 8. Someone raise your hand besides Alan and tell me what that is. Camden.
Identity property.
That is identity property. Which one? Additive or multiplicative? Multiplicative, right? So I can write MULTI, ID, or you can write times symbol ID. It doesn't matter to me. As long as you try to relay the message that this is multiplicative identity. Because I'm timesing by a number, but I'm not changing the answer. And then the last one, if I see a problem like this, it's either going to be commutative or associative. So I try to rule out commutative. So I go 14, 9, 10. And I repeat that and see if it's the same. 14, 9, 10. So could it be commutative? Did I change the order? No. So it's got to be associative. And this is addition, so associative property. So ASSOC, at least that for abbreviation, and then I'd write the plus sign or ADD for additive, for addition. Any questions? So now we're going to put those properties to use. They say simplify. Simplify means do all possible operations, right? And then whatever's left is your answer. Well, I have E plus 3 plus 7. E is a variable. It's an unknown amount. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 100, it could be 1,000, it could be negative 1,000. I don't know what it is. So if I add something to it, I can't change it. Really, I can't add anything to it. It just has to stay as E. But what I can do is I can use my associative property of addition to change the grouping and change the order of this to where I can simplify and where I can do other operations. So I'm going to use associative property, and I'm going to regroup these to where now I have the grouping symbols around 3 and 7. Can I add 3 and 7? Yes, these are what we call like terms, okay, because I can add those. E is not a like term with 3 and 7, so I can't add anything to it. So what's 3 plus 7? 10. So my answer is 3 plus 10, or at least that's what I have. Can I do anything else to it? No. All right? I can't add anything to a variable, so that's my answer. Let's go over here. 8 times 5 times x. Timesing by x, I can't do anything to. It's an unknown amount. It's a variable. So I'm going to use associative property and change the grouping to 8 times 5 times x. Can I multiply 8 and 5?
Yes.
Do I know what that is? Yeah, that's 40. Okay, now I can write it as 40 times x, or I can write it as 40x. You're going to see this a lot in your notes and in your homework, that kind of thing in your book. So it doesn't matter. It's still the same thing. But I can change. I can use associative property. I can use commutative property to change the order of something, but not change my answer. And that allows me to simplify and do every possible operation to where this is a whole lot more simple than this, right? This is simplified compared to that, right? All right, here's your homework.